Hey man, happy Man Talk Monday. Rob here coming at you Monday morning, and I just want to share some things with you I've been grappling with personally, and maybe you can grapple with me with them this week. We can do it together. And what I've been grappling with is regrets. I've had a lot of kind of alone time and time to think, and when I'm kind of in a space where I'm not occupied with anything, often at some point what comes into my mind are regrets about past decisions I've made, past words I've spoken, and past actions I've taken. And it's not a good place to be. What ends up happening is, as I rehearse these regrets, I begin to live with more anxiety. Maybe shame comes up. I start thinking less about myself, and as I rehearse these regrets, it just pulls me down to the point where it starts affecting the way I live today. I'm a little bit more angry, and I'm a little bit more cynical, and I'm a little bit less motivated to grow and live in right ways. And so I know this is a common experience. I've been in a lot of relationships with people who've expressed, people from their 20s to their 80s who've expressed that they have regrets. And so, and it's like, but the question is, what do you do with it, right? What do you do when you have these things in the past that we can't change, but they keep coming up? And so I was reminded of this passage in the Bible. The Bible is just God's wisdom that leads us to right relationship with Him. And in the Bible, there's this guy named Paul who was writing to this church that he planted, and they had a disagreement, a falling out, and he was trying to train them on how do we reconcile our relationship. And one of the passages in this book, it's in the book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 7, verse 10. And Paul writes this. He says, "Godly sorrow brings or produces repentance that leads to salvation and leaves no regret. But worldly sorrow brings death." So as I was grappling with that and reminded of that passage, I was also brought to this podcast that was teaching on this passage. So I just want to share some things that I've been learning, new things and things I've thought before, but I just needed a new insight and a new perspective and a new time of meditation on this truth to kind of grapple with. So let me share a couple things. First of all, there's when we do something wrong, poorly, bad, we have the passage uses the word sorrow, but maybe it's immediate regret, or we just know it was wrong. Something broke. We financially lost. A relationship was lost. Or we just had this stirring inside of us that was like, this was not the right thing to do. And when we have that, there are two paths it seems like we take. One path leads to death, and like destruction, bad things. And for me, it's even like the stewing and the rehearsing of the regrets that I've had in the past. That is a death in a way. It brings me down. It leads me to destruction and to a place of lack of motivation and not living right now. And it could mean more than that and more severely than that. But for me personally, that's where the path of death is. And that's not fun. The other path leads to, first of all, no regrets. Wow, that would be awesome. And it also leads to salvation. And the idea of salvation is you're being saved from something. You're being rescued, saved. You're being made whole. You're being healed. You're living in peace. You're living in like the right way you were created to live and be. So you have freedom and peace, which is powerful. So there's two paths that lead kind of different ways. And it seems like the difference in the paths are, at the start of one path, there is this word in there that Paul uses. It says that godly sorrow produces repentance. And repentance can be a heavy word. It can be a word that, if you grew up in religious circles, can be kind of, I think it's been misused and overused and abused in some ways. But it's a way of kind of, I think, highlighting something, how we posture ourselves. And it just really means to turn away from something towards something else. So if in this case, it's turning away from whatever we did that was wrong, or whatever we're feeling, and we turn away from the direction we were headed toward God. So it's kind of a relational word, like, God, I want to be in relationship with you, in right relationship with you. Or I want to be in right relationship with my wife. Or I want to be in right relationship with my kids or my friend or whatever, my coworkers. And so the two paths, one leads to salvation and no regret, the other one leads to death. The difference between them is the one that leads to the good stuff has repentance in it, a turning in it. The last thing I want to say, it's probably the most important thing for us to grapple with this week, is there are two types of sorrows that start the paths. So when we feel immediate regret, angst, wrongness in our action, there are two paths we can take, and one is we feel bad, right? We genuinely feel bad or sorrowful either way. There's godly sorrow and worldly sorrow. We feel sorrow either way in a very genuine way. But I was challenged with this, and it's been really eye-opening to think. The difference between godly sorrow and worldly sorrow is our motivation. It's our focus. Worldly sorrow seems to be self-focused. So when I do something wrong, I begin to justify myself. I begin to try to cover myself, care for myself. I feel bad that I did this because I'm losing something. And I don't want to lose it. I don't want to lose my kid. I feel bad that I've lost my kid because I said this word to him. Or I feel bad that I suffered the consequences of a lost job because I opened my mouth, or I made a wrong action, a wrong decision. I feel bad about that loss. But godly sorrow is others focused. It's focused on God and other people. And it says things like, I want to restore you, kid. I want to restore you, spouse. I want to be in relationship with you, God, and I hurt you, God, or you people, and I want to make it right for your sake. I care about you. And I want to tell you guys, like thinking about my motivation and my focus in that way is beginning to make a huge difference as I grapple with it. I've even gone back to some of these past regrets that I have, and I've realized that I just don't like the outcome, but I did have a right motivation. I wanted to be in right relationship with God and other people, and it just didn't work out. And there are other times when it was a poor motivation, a poor focus on my part. I was focused on my own pain, advancing myself, winning an argument, and that has always led to more regret and more pain and more death, more difficulty. So I hope this makes sense to you, but as we go this week, I just want you to think, do you have regrets you're grappling with? And even your response to those past regrets, you can choose between godly sorrow and worldly sorrow. Maybe there's somebody in the past that you have a regret with that you just need to pick up the phone and call them and make it right now. And it's like 20 years ago, but you still could do it. Maybe it's a conversation you need to have with God in prayer. But you can choose the path you take and the motivation you have. Are you focused on yourself? Or are you focused on others and God? And that makes all the difference. So may you today, men, this week and in the years to come, live a life when the sorrow comes on you. May it be the type of sorrow that leads to wholeness and salvation and healing and health and goodness and no regrets. And may you do everything you can to avoid death and destruction that is always going to fall on us when we live in the way the world wants us to, that's opposed to the way God made us to live. Have a great day, great week, and just know that God's with you, and his focus is on you, and he would love for your focus to be on him as well. Have a great day, man.